Hello and welcome to India's World. A Pakistani military court has sentenced a former Indian Navy officer Bhushan to death for espionage and sabotage. India has denied that Jadhav was a spy and has dismissed the Pakistan military court's proceedings as farcical. India has also said that if the death sentence were carried out, it would amount to premeditated murder. Repeated requests by India for consular access to Jadhav were denied by Pakistan. Pakistan's version of events is very different from India's. Pakistan has claimed that Bhushan was responsible for espionage, sabotage and terrorism in Pakistan, that he had been tried according to the law of the land in a fully transparent manner and while preserving his rights under the Pakistan constitution. Pakistan has killed alleged Indian spies earlier also. In 1999, an alleged Indian spy was hanged, and in 2016, an Indian citizen in jail for 16 years convicted of sabotage and terrorism was killed by his fellow inmates even while efforts were on to bring him back to India. To discuss the possible fallout of the death sentence on Jadhav, we have with us three distinguished experts. We have with us Ambassador Vivek Katju. He was India's ambassador to Afghanistan, Myanmar and Thailand and handled the Pakistan desk in the Ministry of External Affairs for a record 6 years. We have with us Mr. Jayadeva Ranade. He is a former additional secretary in the Cabinet Secretariat and is president of the Center for China Analysis and Strategy. We have with us Mr. Tapan Bose. He is Secretary General of the South Asia Forum for Human Rights and a founder member of Pakistan-India People's Forum for Peace and Democracy. I welcome you gentlemen to this discussion. Vivek, let me begin with you. What are the diplomatic options open to India after Pakistan's decision to hang Bhushan?
Well, I think the Indian High Commissioner in Pakistan has already asked the Pakistan Foreign Secretary for a charge sheet and the judgment against him, which was the right thing to do, and has repeated India's request for consular access. But there are no diplomatic actions we can bring up which will move Pakistan. We can bring this matter to the attention of the world community, not in a formal way, because we can't go to the International Court of Justice because we don't ever accept the jurisdiction of that court in matters relating to India and Pakistan, which is the right approach that we've had historically and traditionally. But the question is whether Pakistan will be moved by anything of this nature, because their objective in this Bharat is quite clear. It is propaganda.
Mr. Ranade, could it be that we are heading towards a prisoner swap, because there have been reports that India has in possession a retired Pakistani lieutenant colonel who went missing from Lumbini in Nepal? Or do you think Pakistani calculation is that India would, despite the hullabaloo about Bhushan Jadhav's death sentence, they would take the decision on the chin, just as we have taken terrorism directed against India on the chin and the killing of serving Indian army officers in India on the chin in the past?
Well, firstly, as far as that Lieutenant Colonel who disappeared from Lumbini, whether he's with us or not, that's the story put out by the Pakistanis. So I don't think there is any evidence or any indication that he's with India. But on this Bhushan Jadhav case, I'd like to add one point, which is it's not a straightforward apprehension of an Indian inside Pakistan. Be it agent, otherwise that's irrelevant. It was a case of an abduction of an Indian national from another country, from Iran, and then he was brought into Pakistan.
How do we know that?
That is a statement given by the Iranian ambassador in Pakistan. I think there have been other statements also done by that, and the Pakistanis have not said that they apprehended him here. Inside
they
Pakistan.
Said he was apprehended in a place called Mashkil.
Yes, and if he was there in Chahabahar or the area in Chahabahar, why should he be going to Pakistan? I think there are a lot of holes there, including the fact that he was traveling with an Indian passport. It doesn't make sense to me at all. So I would still go with the fact that he was abducted. After that, he was, of course, put through the Pakistani system of a general court-martial. And he was, which means in that general court-martial, there is no requirement for evidence that the man has been up to something. A charge and a suspicion is good enough, and that is what has happened in this case. So I think certainly if there has to be a swap, I would ask two questions. Why did the Pakistanis go public with it, and why did they raise the level of public attention on this case? Second, a swap can still be possible. But then the Pakistanis will try and extract a high price. One of them being resumption of normal talks. Second is, I don't know what else, but it will be a high price, higher than India would have been prepared to pay.
Tapan, you've been a human rights activist. Vivek says that India has never moved ICJ, the International Court of Justice. But there is a provision under the optional protocol to Vienna Convention on Consular Relations concerning compulsory settlement of disputes, which both the countries have signed. The additional protocol has been signed, optional protocol has been signed by India in 1977 and Pakistan in 1976. And this has been used by several other countries in the past when death sentence has been given to their citizens in a foreign country. For example, it's been, there's a case of Germany and US and Mexico, Uruguay and US. Why shouldn't India use this to save its citizen?
Well, I don't know why India should not use it. I think India should. But, you know, to come back, I think it's really not very clear what the case is all about, to be very honest. And even on the whole issue of abduction, I don't think the Iranian ambassador has categorically said that he was abducted. It is the German ambassador who said it, and he has now retracted. And also the illusion was that he was abducted by some Taliban group and who sold him there. I think we need to have some, but to begin with, let me say a death sentence is unacceptable.
Whatever be the reason.
Absolutely, there is no ground for supporting that. We are also aware of the fact that the entire process of, you know, the trial was very murky. But then most court martials are like that, as you and I know.
But what should India do so that India doesn't look helpless while one of its citizens is executed? Spy or not a spy is immaterial.
Look, I think it is, I mean, I don't know because I am not government. You see, I represent a human rights.
So what should civil society do? What should human rights activists do?
Civil society should appeal to both, and we should come, and in fact, we are already in touch with several groups in Pakistan. There are lawyers who are willing to take up his case. As you know, I mean, in response, the Lahore Bar Association has now warned. So it is not that there are no humanitarian groups or human rights groups in Pakistan. Marvi, I mean, she has come out openly. The journalist has condemned the death sentence. So there are civil society groups who are dealing with it and who have taken it up on the violation of rights, on the question of death sentence and so on and so forth. But I think the government needs to talk to government of Pakistan to, you know, on matters that are in the area of secret.
In the area of?
You know, secrecy.
Secrecy.
I mean, for example, he traveling around with an Indian passport and a Muslim name.
Yeah.
And doing business there.
Okay, we're going to discuss this further.
All that is something that needs to be clarified.
Yeah, we're going to discuss that further, but we need to take a break at this point. We'll be back in a bit. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are looking at the possible consequences of Pakistan awarding a death sentence to an Indian citizen, Kulbhushan Jadhav. Vivek, two short questions. One, if Islamabad does not hang Jadhav, how effective a symbol would he be of India's alleged interference in Balochistan? And two, do you think the world will take as credible Sartaj Aziz's statement that he was actually engaged in terrorism and sabotage? He's given specific instances of where he was involved.
Sartaj Aziz's statement of yesterday is completely laughable, Bharat. If you see the allegations...
You may say that. I'm asking you, how does the rest of the world say
Please, let me just analyze it, and that is how the rest of the world will analyze it.
Okay.
He has given a series of instances which he claims that Jadhav was involved. That's ridiculous, without any substantiation, without any evidence. Just to make simple statements means nothing. That is one. Second, if you see the timeline which he has provided, that makes it very revealing. First, this Jadhav was picked up, abducted by them sometime in early March. Then he says confessional, the first confessional video statement is 25th March.
Of last year?
Of last year. 8th April of last year is the FIR which has been launched. The interrogation is May 2nd, the first interrogation. What does this mean? That for 2 months they have the man without any judicial proceedings, nothing. They have them in this captivity, and obviously that was the period used for torture. Then it's even more interesting. In January, they approach us, according to this statement, they approach India for evidence, for more evidence, materials, etc.
Letter of assistance.
Letter of assistance. By November of last year, 3 proceedings in the trial have already taken place. What does this show? You are approaching India for material and evidence of a specific nature, and proceedings are going on without sufficient evidence. That is the clear inference from this timeline. And they then pronounce a sentence of death on him. So will the world accept this timeline? This is the timeline he has provided.
Yeah. But let me take the question of letter of assistance to you, Mr. Ranade. Sartaj's statement, of course, says that they sent a letter of assistance. Sushma Swaraj, our Minister of External Affairs, has said in a statement in Parliament that such a letter was indeed received, requesting specific information and access to certain key witnesses, as Pakistan says. Now, do we have any idea what kind of assistance was sought? And do you think the requests could have been of such a manner or of such a kind that India would have found it difficult to assist Pakistan?
Well, I don't know the details of the letter of assistance, but one thing is very clear. From the manner in which the entire case has proceeded, I mean, and the man has been apprehended, that Pakistan is also trying to get or prove the involvement of the Indian government or agencies of the Indian government in the Kulbhushan Jadhav case.
So that's what I'm saying.
That is why
they were asking Government of India to provide evidence of Government of India's complicity in the
complicity,
case?
that is exactly when they ask for evidence against maybe certain individuals or certain instances. If Government of India provides it, then obviously,
you admit
in a way, you are admitting to it. And that is what Pakistan wants. So I think that is what their game is. I think they are playing a high stakes game, as I said, but that's how I would look at it.
Yes.
No. But the fact is, this is right, that it is all propaganda. Yeah. But the fact is that without evidence, when you are yourself saying, please give us evidence, how are you hanging him?
But you know that letter of assistance is rhetoric in nature. You're not going to get any assistance.
No, but the letter of, it is a material fact when it comes to the trial. Okay. This is what I'm saying, that to bank on Pakistan's civil society or the judiciary, etc., will never work in this case, because it's pure army indulging in propaganda against India.
Okay, but how would you respond? You had raised this question. How do you respond to Pakistan's question? One, why was Kulbhushan Jadhav using a fake identity, impersonating as a Muslim? Why did he call himself Mubarak Patel?
I have no idea. That has to be answered.
Why would an innocent man possess 2 passports, Pakistan is asking? One in a Hindu name, another in a Muslim name.
As I said, I mean, these are questions that need to be answered, and probably Government of India also needs to answer how he could obtain a fake passport just like that. On the issue of abduction, I mean, these 2 governments have been abducting people from third country for a long time. I have dealt with it at a personal level in many cases. India has been abducting people from Nepal. Pakistan has been abducting people from somewhere else. So, it's a crime that both the governments indulge, and it's been a nightmare for us, particularly for a regional human rights.
I don't know whether
all this moral equivalence, all this attempt at creating moral equivalence, Tapan, is completely out of order.
I'm not creating a moral equivalence, Vivek. What I'm saying, both governments indulge in such activities against and their own people, and they violate human rights, at the drop of the hat.
Mr. Ranade, you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to come in on the question of the passports, where I think both of you raised the point as to how come he has this passport in another name. I think too much is being made out of the passports. What makes us assume that the Government of India provided Jadhav a passport? Absolutely. The Pakistanis could have given him a passport, and certainly the Government of India's, I would say, its agencies are certainly not that dumb that they're going to give a man an Indian passport and send him into the, denied or into a hostile territory. So I would in fact lean to the supposition that the Pakistanis have planted the passports on this individual, both the passports. It's not that difficult. All the terrorist modules that we've uncovered inside India, many of them have Indian passports, all false. Same thing could have been done there. So much better to say that this guy is an Indian and he's come here. It's not something that I think any intelligence agency in the world would accept.
No, one other thing. That is why the government is saying repeatedly, please give us consular access so that we can ask this man all these questions.
Look, I think to say that the passport could have been given to him by Pakistan doesn't bear fact.
How do you know?
Because he has been traveling in the country, he's been coming back and forth, he has been meeting people in the neighborhood, and he has been saying that he is a Muslim. These are interviews which have
this is what
his
Pakistan
neighbor.
is saying. This is what Pakistan is saying.
No, this is what has appeared in our newspapers. In Thane, whenever he has visited, he has talked to people there, calling himself by his Muslim name, and people in the surrounding area know him as a Muslim who speaks Marathi, because he says, he was doing business in Satara. All the stories are there in the newspapers. So that's not he had the passport issued from Pune. No, I am not saying, and it is not my business to whether it is wrong, gave it to that. These are domains in which they are much better. But could be. I mean, what I would like to ask when somebody comes to me with a case like this, I would like to ask him, why are you carrying a passport with a false name? So maybe he has an agenda, which is very different from that of India and Pakistan. So we don't know. But
you're saying his agenda is very different from that of India and Pakistan's agenda?
Very possible. I don't know what kind of an agenda he has. Okay. What I would say that I stand by his right to get a fair trial, an open trial, and I also stand by his right not to be given a death sentence.
Okay. We need to take a break again at this point. We'll be back in a bit. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are looking at the possible consequences of a death sentence awarded to an Indian citizen, Bhushan Jayadeva, by a Pakistani military court. Mr. Ranade, you wanted to say something?
No, I'm just talking about, the false passport or the forged passport or whatever you want to call it, and why he could have had it. He could have had it for any number of reasons. He could have been a smuggler, he could have been involved in some, drug operation, one doesn't know. And just to label him as an intelligence agent for that, I think is really stretching the imagination. And this needs to be actually investigated, if at all. So, but it doesn't come into this present case. I mean, as I said, the basic point is he was abducted, brought here and given a court-martial. Why?
Okay. Vivek, what sense does it make for Pakistan to fan tensions between Pakistan and India through this propaganda, as you call it? Do you think Pakistan wants to bring international pressure on India to begin a dialogue over Kashmir and other issues, and sort of restart the stalled dialogue process?
Look, Pakistan is now known the world over as the epicenter of terror, and this is not a cliche. This is something which everyone accepts. The world also accepts that Pakistan has been fomenting, instigating terrorism in India for almost 3 decades now. Now, they propagate that India is fomenting terrorism and causing instability in Balochistan and in Karachi. So, no one buys that.
But after the Indian leaders have talked about saying that we will focus on Balochistan,
please,
talk about human rights in Balochistan, etc. How credible is this statement that you are doing nothing in Balochistan?
Listen, there is one thing to say, Bharat, that the human rights situation in Balochistan is so bad that Pakistan does not have any right to point fingers at human rights situations in any other country. That was the purport of what the Prime Minister said on Balochistan from the Red Fort.
But in the all-party meeting, He also talked about human rights violations in Balochistan. What I am saying is people are going to read between the lines.
No, there is no question reading between the lines. The first thing is to read what has the man said. Now, you can have completely wrong interpretations, you are free to, but that is not what the world believes.
It's not what you and I read. I am saying what will the world read, the rest of the world read into
the rest of the world believes that India may have an interest in Balochistan, but certainly it is not fomenting terrorism, that Balochistan's problems emanate from within Pakistan. This is what the Pakistanis want to use the Jayadeva case for, to wipe out or create this moral equivalence which somehow the other, many people believe that India is bad, Pakistan is bad, both our countries are equally bad. This is what is their game. And that is why I believe that we need to handle this matter with absolute firmness and on the principle, time-honored principle of reciprocity.
Okay, I'll come to that in a bit. But Mr. Ranade, on Pakistan trying to bring international attention onto India-Pakistan tensions, do you think it's also been emboldened by the statements that have been coming from the US of late? Ambassador Nikki Haley's statement on, focusing on Kashmir. Then there was the CENTCOM chief's statement before the Senate Armed Services Committee expressing concern about growing India-Pakistan tensions. So, do you think Pakistan is right in assuming that the US can do something to diffuse these tensions? Can the US do something to diffuse India-Pakistan tensions?
I think the US statements come as an additional backdrop to what Pakistan has as its agenda. And I think there are two main points that Pakistan is operating on, or two agenda points that it has. First, I think it wants to bring India to the negotiating table to resume talks on the whole range of issues, Siachen, Sir Creek, etc., the works. Kulbhushan Jadhav case being one of those. The second is from the time of April 2015, when the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor was announced. In fact, I think it was Ambassador Khokhar of Pakistan who first wrote a piece saying that Pakistan and China must work together to expose India's designs and activities in Balochistan. I think it was published by Global Times, which is a state-run newspaper of the Chinese. And this I look at from that perspective. That is, that they want to indicate to the Chinese that the pressure on the CPEC, the problems that the Chinese workers and the CPEC is facing in this area is thanks to the Indians, and that they are doing their best but not being able. Therefore, they're trying to get Chinese pressure also on us. I think these are the two main agendas. What the Americans have said has come much later, and it is part of the backdrop.
Okay. Tapan, do you think through the death sentence awarded to Jadhav, Pakistan aims to embarrass the Indian government by generating domestic public pressure on the government? And if so, what could be the aim of that public pressure? Because one could understand in the IC 814 hijack case, domestic public pressure led to releasing of some terrorists. But the second time around, this time around, what do they expect India will do if they increase domestic pressure on this government?
I don't think they try to build up domestic pressure on the government. I mean, what kind of pressure? That India should, do more to get him out, or what people like Parveen Togadia has already suggested India should do, like bombing Pakistan and so on and so forth. I don't think that is the objective. And but it is clear that Mr. Jadhav has become a pawn in a situation over which he has very little control. And Pakistan has been internationalizing it right from the time they arrested him. In 2016, they submitted a dossier to the United Nations Secretary General in September, which we should have had access to. I don't know why Government of India didn't bother. Before that, they also submitted a dossier on Jadhav and his activities to, according to Pakistan government statement, to the British as well as the American government. Yeah. So, this has been there for a while. And we've kept quiet, except making a statement. On what I think is absolutely unacceptable is denial of consular access.
Okay.
And that should be given immediately. And this is what we have also said to Government of Pakistan. Okay. It should be given immediately so that at least the Indian side knows what the situation is. And then
we are running out of time. We're running out of time. My last question to you, Mr. Ranade. If you had to give advice to government, What would your advice to Government of India would be? He says reciprocity. I don't know what reciprocity might mean.
I will explain if you give me time.
I don't have time because I know where that is leading, but what would you like to say?
No, it's very short, one sentence.
Go on.
They've panicked because they believe that one of their officers is with us.
Okay, all right.
They believe
what
it,
would your
whatever
advice
is the
be?
truth is later.
What would your
Well,
advice
I would
be?
say that the line taken in our parliament is very apt, which is that we must do everything to get him released. That is step one. Step two, we must make Pakistan pay the price for this, deliver a strong lesson, because this is the beginning. This abduction is a very worrying thing. It can happen across. We have Indians in Afghanistan, we've got Indians in Nepal, we've got other Indians in UAE. Yeah. Who knows where the Pakistanis will stop?
Okay. So on that cautionary note, we've run out of time. We'll close this discussion. I'd like to thank all my guests, Tapan, Bose, Mr. Jayadeva, Ranade, Ambassador Vivek, Katju, for participating in this discussion. That is all we have for you today. We'll be back again as usual next week. Until then, goodbye and thanks for watching India's World.